Good morning, church. Would you stand with us today? Come on, let's put our hands together and let's worship him.
My name is Heather, and I am so glad that you have joined us today. I think fall has finally entered the chat. Summer is gone, fall is here. Any other fall lovers in the room? Woo! Pumpkin spice, everything nice, amazing. Well, at Gateway, we are a community of people that encourages each other to take steps in the right direction, both in our faith and in our lives. Over the next hour or so, we will sing some worship songs to God, we will hear about some great events coming up, and hear a message from Pastor Tim. We want you to have a great experience today. We want you to find a place to belong here and to care for those who live in our communities. We want to give a special welcome to those newer to Gateway. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, we are glad that you are here, and we want to help you in any way that we can. We invite you to complete a Connect card by scanning the QR code on screen or going to our app or connect.wearegateway.ca. If you're here in person, stop by the Welcome to the Family sign out in the atrium on your way out. You can't miss it. We want to say hi, get to know you a bit better, and we have a gift for you. All right, we're going to continue with worship, so why don't you sing along with us?
The weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph.
from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom come and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. Oh, let's sing it out. Praise the Father, praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. On the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till the stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death, and the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, and the souls of all who come to the Father are restored, and the church of Christ was born, and the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel to the born shall not kneel, shall not faint. By His blood and in His name, in His freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Oh, praise forever to the King of Kings. Oh, give Him praise this morning. You are the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. That's you, Jesus. Oh, we worship you, Jesus. Oh, we honor you. We honor you, Jesus. Amen. Thanks for worshiping with us this morning. You may be seated.
For the last several weeks, we have been sharing with you about all of the wonderful things that we are partnering with in different entities to make a difference around the world, not just here in the city of London, but different agencies that are working as missionaries and as resources for other developing countries. And we've been showing you videos because, of course, with the pandemic, travel and all those things have been very difficult, but we have a treat for you today. Kathy Meisen is here with us. Come on up, Kathy, all the way from Tegucigalpa, Honduras. She's just flown in, and we are so happy to have her with us. You may not have, if you're new to Gateway, you won't know Kathy, but Kathy has been a partner with us for a number of years. Many of you have had the opportunity to travel to Tegucigalpa, to travel and to be with her and her team. But I want to introduce her to so many of you here today. Kathy, so good to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about what you do and introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Kathy Meisen. I am a missionary in Tegus. I work with a ministry called Schools of Hope, and I've been there just over 7 years. Wow, our main focus is bringing the hope of Jesus Christ to the public schools as well as the communities where they live. And so over the past 10, 11 years, we have been in the public schools sharing the gospel, offering nutrition programs, tutoring, and recently in the last 3 years, water filtration projects. So we can work not just with the kids, but with their parents, with leaders in the community. And God has just blessed us and opened doors in incredible ways.
And it really seems interesting. We've been chatting a little bit about, all the restrictions that over the last 18 months and how so many ministries have had to shut down or pause or be on hold. But Kathy, I just love your attitude. You said that whatever this has been shut down, you found new opportunities. Tell us a bit about that.
So I started praying and saying, God, your word says that we're supposed to take advantage of every opportunity. And so I was like, well, schools are closed, so what can we do?
Right.
So our teams have been teaching Bible classes and videos, sending them out through WhatsApp, text messenger, or our YouTube channel. We've been sending food home through the nutrition program. We are in our second year full closure of schools. And so not only that, one child, we would have fed about 635 kids in school.
Every day.
Every day, Monday to Friday. Now, I'm like, it's probably double or triple because not just that one child is being impacted, but their entire family.
Yeah, because things are so scarce, no one's working. You think work is hard here, no one is working there. Everything is still shut down. And so the meals you're preparing and those boxes that you're delivering feed not just the child, but the entire family.
Yeah.
That's just fantastic. And again, looking for new opportunities. And again, when everything else shuts down, Kathy gets going. So tell us about what your next step is.
Yeah, so because of all the opportunities we've had, the house that we've been renting, House of Hope, which Gateway has awesomely helped us to support to keep it open, we've been able to do our feeding program through there and tutoring program. And over this last several years, ministry keeps growing that God finally told me, Kathy, it's time to dream bigger. So we are building a renovation and hope center that we plan on using to expand our tutoring, expand our reach in the community to help with education. But we're also partnering with the local church. And so almost 7 days a week, for Spanish churches meet like 4 or 5 times a week. So between them and us, that building is going to be used almost every day of the week because we want to bring more hope, education, and we want to continue to partner with the communities. God keeps giving me more dreams. I actually said, God, could you slow it down because I don't have my building yet.
Oh, Kathy, you are after my own heart. I love dreamers. I love vision, and we are so excited. We are partnering with this program and this building, and when you give to missions, you are helping to support this because we're in for the long haul. The borders are going to probably open up, and hopefully by next year we can resume travel down to Tegus to see Kathy, to see the work she's doing, to partner with her, to see this ministry continue to expand. So we're so excited that we get to be part of what you're doing. We'll keep you on the ground, and we're just so excited for all the great things that you are doing.
Thank you. You guys are a huge support, and I know I wouldn't be able to do it without you guys, so thank you.
Oh, bless you. Now absolutely. Give her a hand. Give God a hand. Gateway continues to grow, and one of the segments that is the fastest growing here at Gateway in our local community is our Spanish-speaking Hispanic families. They continue to grow. They're our largest segment. You can hear them cheering. Kathy, why don't you speak to them in ways that I can't?
Dios le bendiga, hermanos. Es un gran privilegio para estar aquí con usted. Bendiciones para usted, su familia, y especialmente esta iglesia. Dios le bendiga.
Amen and amen. God bless you. Thank you so much, Kathy. She'll be in the foyer if you want to chat with her later. Come on up, Hev.
Amazing. It is so awesome to hear about all the great work that God is doing through this amazing missions work. So at Gateway, we want the next generation of kids and students to experience all that God has for them. So we have online experiences tailored just for them. You can access our online preschool and elementary kids, as well as our middle school student experience via the QR code or web addresses on screen. Now, Momentum Junior High Conference for middle school students. Yeah, let's hear it. Woo! It's coming up for all students across Western Ontario in Hamilton, November 5th to 6th. And this is a high-energy event with a focus on leading students into a deeper relationship with Jesus through biblical teaching and worship. Now, the early bird price ends today, so you can register at wearegateway.ca. For those of you who are new to faith and new to Gateway, Pastor Blair and Matt are going to be offering a 3-week Connect group. This is going to be Wednesday, November 3rd, 10th, and 17th at 7 p.m. at the London campus. They'll be going through a group study called 3 Questions Everybody Has About God. Now, if you'd like to attend the group, please email Pastor Blair at the address on screen. So today we are starting a 2-part series called What Was I Thinking? And I know every one of us has said that question. I said it just before coming up here. What was I thinking, okay? It's all about the pursuit of wisdom. So I'm gonna be inviting Caleb Tucker and Christine Jackson to come on up and sit across from each other at this table. We're gonna do something fun today and a little bit different. So all of us have different opinions and many different views on different issues. They are going to be having a 3-minute debate on the subject, shopping, global or local. Is it okay for us to buy items from big box retailers, or should we be buying from local businesses in our community, even if it costs more? So we're gonna have a 3-minute countdown on screen. I'm gonna check in with our debaters. Caleb, are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Shopping, are we doing global or local?
Global, for sure.
He's all global. Christine, are we ready?
It's all about local.
Of
course I'm ready.
Okay, she's a local gal. All right, let's get the countdown on screen and debate.
So one of the most frustrating things I experience when I shop is walking through a big box store. And you're walking through the aisles and you're saying, where on earth is anyone to help me? Where you won't have that same experience is at a small local shop, because the store owner is likely passionate and available to give you the best customer service that you're not used to having at a big box store.
Okay, so if you are interested in customer service, I guess that's fine, but the real issue here that we're talking about is the price point. Like, if I can go to the same store, to a different store, and get a better price, then why would I not go there? Yes, customer service is great, and if they can compete at that level, that's fine if you want to go there, but I don't want to tell other people.
Is it truly a competition? Is it truly a competition? Because when you consider the economy and numbers, small businesses are the greatest and largest employer of people throughout the country. So if you're saying, well, what about the bottom line? I'm saying if you tell the little guy that's going paycheck to paycheck that he's not gonna have a job anymore because the mom and pop shop on the corner can't employ him, what's he gonna do?
Other big corporations employ people too. More people, probably. They're bigger.
No, that's not entirely true. That's not what the evidence suggests.
They have more people.
Well, they might have more people in one big box store, but if you look across the board, they don't necessarily. But what also is important is that smaller shops and more shops against the big box store create diversity, and they create...
And inefficiencies. Because
this is also very
true. That's why the price is cheaper, because you're spending people hours on things that robots can do. And yes, I get that they're jobs, but they're not good jobs.
But doesn't that undermine your first point where you were suggesting it's all about the money? And if you're having a robot do something, how does that allow me an opportunity to feed my family? Because I'm not working.
The question isn't, should I work for a big box store? It's where should I purchase things? And I want to buy things from the cheapest place because it's the same product.
But if I don't have a job because I can't work at the mom and pop shop, I don't have any money to purchase at the big box store. But we haven't even talked about the environment and the impact that purchasing globally has on the environment and all this transportation.
1 minute.
Well, I mean, smaller shops do shipping too. Like, once again, it comes down to if big companies can afford to ship things and do it cheaper, then they must be doing something more efficiently. Smaller places also pollute. They don't pollute as much as bigger companies because they're bigger. Like, the difference between those things and the whole environment issue is something that's so much bigger to unpack than just global versus local.
You're right, but when I'm going to a store, I don't have the opportunity or the time to research all the intricacies. I really want to know, how does this impact my community right now? And if I
30
invest in my
seconds.
community, then I'm investing in my neighbor, and my neighbor is more willing to invest in me. And not only they're more willing to invest in me, they're willing to invest in my neighbors and my general community, not the big box
Closing
store who's ready
arguments,
to
Christine.
they're not ready to shut down and move to the next cheaper place.
Yeah, I guess so. But once again, if you're telling someone you should be shopping at this more expensive place, people need to spend money on so many things. Prices are going up everywhere. And if you are needing to spend money on something more expensive, you're not going to have enough money to pay
But
for things
it's
that you need.
important to ensure that you have that money.
You guys are done. Give them a round of applause. Amazing job. Thank you to our debaters. Some really great points made. They kept it pretty civil. The first service got a little ugly, okay? We are going to give you guys the opportunity now to discuss and maybe even debate with those around you. So this is your scenario. Your kitchen table broke and you need a new one. The big box store sells it for $1,000. You then find it on Amazon for $900 with free shipping. And then you discover a family-owned local furniture store who sells it for $1,100. Now, that could stretch your budget, but you know that they've struggled over the last year. What would you do and why? While you are discussing this, we have an in-person experience for our middle school students. So if you are in grades 6 to 8, I invite you to go out to the atrium for your program. Everybody else, go ahead and discuss for a couple minutes, and we'll be right back.
Did you have some fun with that? How many of you are delighted to discover that it is okay for you to fight with each other in church? What do you think, you know? Let's have a spirited debate and argument. You may have had more agreement in your discussions than these two had up here, but it certainly brings up a whole group of issues that are surrounding that, as well as many, many other issues that we may or may not all agree on. And they're very complex issues. Of course, we threw a third option in. We talked about the big box as well as something like Amazon online, and then also the local store. And those are things that we all have to wrestle through. I find myself confessing that I need to get to know more local businesses in my community so that I can consider them as an option that I will default to or think of, because I think of Amazon. Are you with me? And that's why I naturally just go to it, and other reasons as well with price and convenience and stuff. But there's just this wrestle that we have. And that leads us to what we're talking about today. Wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the markets, she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy streets, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates, she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? These are the words of King Solomon in Proverbs chapter 1 from around 950 BC. And it would be easy to think that we now have far more information and knowledge and understanding than they did 3,000 years ago when he wrote that. And that is certainly true in many areas of life, including utilities and manufacturing and health and medicine and, of course, technology. But at the same time, have you ever made a decision to say or do something and later found yourself asking, what was I thinking? Anybody? I think I asked it already today a couple of times. Join the club. I've asked that question many times, too often. And it's kind of like we're wondering why we could have ever thought it was a good idea, to send that email. And how could I have thought it was a good idea to share that online post or buy that item or start that relationship? And it happens more than we'd like to admit. How can we ask that question a lot less? Or maybe avoid it altogether? Obviously, just having more information or knowledge alone isn't going to cut it. And that's because, friends, this is an issue of human nature rather than human advancement. We have learned many things and we have gotten better at many things, but none of those things change the way we are or what we're like. It doesn't change how we tend to think. It doesn't change what we tend to say and do, because this is more an issue of human nature than it is of human advancement. Even if we advance in so much knowledge and so much information, it will not necessarily change the human heart to be better. A current example of this is, unfortunately, a very disturbing story of something that took place this past week. Some of you may have seen this in the news. But there was an account that happened in Philadelphia where a man harassed and groped a woman for 40 minutes on a train just outside of Philadelphia while she repeatedly pushed him away. He eventually ended up raping her on that train. And that is despicable. It's a special kind of despicable. But what is equally disturbing is that there were many fellow passengers on that train, and none of them intervened, and no one called 911. Instead, they watched and they held up their phones to record it. Eventually, a single 911 call was made, but it was by an off-duty transportation employee. And then, of course, transit officers entered the train in the middle of the man's assault and arrested him and stopped it. But it was too late. How long, wisdom cries aloud? How long? This is an issue, friends, of human nature, not of human advancement. This is where human advancement can still lead. Do I have your attention now? I'm sorry for the dramatic story. But what is the answer to making good decisions, healthy decisions, the right decisions? I mean, there is so much information available, isn't there? There's so many voices around us, and in the middle of all the noise, what we really need is wisdom. Wisdom to know where to find truth, what to do with it, and when to use it, and how to apply it to our lives. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like something I could use a lot more of. Maybe you too. Well, welcome to our series called What Was I Thinking? Whether you are with us online or in person, this is something, friends, this what was I thinking question that we can all relate to. It's something we're all prone to. It's something we all need help with. Welcome to the pursuit of wisdom. Did you know that every minute, almost 200 million emails and 20 million texts are sent in the world? Almost 5 million videos are viewed on YouTube every minute. There are 40 times more bytes of data online than there are stars in the observable universe. It is estimated that in just 4 years from now, 2025, 463 exabytes of data will be created each day online. That's the equivalent of 213 million DVDs every day. In case those of you who are a little younger, a DVD is a round silver disc that you put in this box called a DVD player, and you push a button and it plays movies on it. Now I know you're thinking, why would you ever put a movie on something dumb like that? It's a long story, we'll talk about it later. But to put it in perspective, that's 463 exabytes of data every day. Well, just 5 exabytes is more than all the words spoken by all humans since the dawn of time. Soon that amount of data, friends, will be created every 15 minutes. We are completely inundated and oversaturated with information. News reports and feeds, television shows, websites and advertisements and books and publications and articles and blogs and podcasts and social media posts. The list goes on and on. We have never had so much access to so much information simultaneously in the history of the human race. It's like going to a restaurant and the all-you-can-eat buffet. How many of you like all-you-can-eat buffets? The rest of you either lying or just not quite with it, all right? But you just gotta go. You gotta go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, all right? It's like the restaurants were made for all-you-can-eat buffets, right? We know that. Well, it's like picture this. You're going to a restaurant, has an all-you-can-eat buffet that is the size of Toronto. The all-you-can-eat buffet is the size of a large city. And more is being constantly added to the buffet, and people are stuffing food into your mouth and pouring beverages down your throat. And when that's done, you go back to get more of whatever you want. And it never ends. It only increases. That's what it's like. Did you know that the average human being checks their phone up to 200 times per day? Average. Any average people here today? I'm guilty of this, and we don't even know. We're not even aware that we're doing it that much or that often. It's quite a consumption, isn't it? Brett McCracken, in his book called The Wisdom Pyramid, says this: ever since the Garden of Eden, humans have struggled with contentment. We want more than what we have, and we want it now. Have you ever noticed how everyone is now an expert on everything? That's one of the byproducts of the availability and gluttony and immediacy of information. We recognize less and less the actual qualifications of others, and we have an inflated view of those who actually aren't qualified, including ourselves. And now we can share all of those opinions online, and that's how we know they're true, right? Because it's online. As Brett describes it, everyone has a megaphone, but no one has a filter. Using the buffet analogy, did we ever stop to ask if this is good for us? If we actually know for sure where it all came from, who prepared it, how it was prepared, exactly what is in it, and if what we're eating and consuming is actually what we need, regardless of whether it's what we want. Did we ever ask that? Did we ask if it's what God has for us or not? When it comes down to it, friends, there are 3 primary sources of information. There's God, humans, and the devil. And where information comes from is extremely important. Information that comes from God is truth. Information that comes from humans can contain truth. It might be true or it might not. And according to Jesus, information that comes from the heart and mind of the devil is a pack of lies. It's the same way with knowledge. If you have ever read Genesis chapter 3, when Adam and Eve listened to the devil's lies and they disobeyed God and fell into sin, what tree did they eat from? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You see, they were never meant to know evil for themselves. We were never meant to have that knowledge. And I would propose that there is a lot of knowledge that we were never meant to have. It's the same with wisdom. 1 Corinthians 1:21 says, the world through its wisdom does not know God. And so humanistic wisdom that is based only on intelligence and belief in a human-centered philosophy will not lead us to know God and thereby know truth. It will lead somewhere else. And we've seen in our world the places it can lead. Knowing the source of information, friends, is critical. It's critical to what we do with it. So we know what to do with it. So whether we will believe it and trust it and receive it and share it with others and ultimately change the way we live by it or not. I find it amazing that today so many people are believing and trusting and receiving and sharing information and even making decisions to change the way they live when there is no way they could know for sure that what they're swallowing is actually true. No way. Particularly during the pandemic. Let's call it for what it is. We have seen information spread throughout the world at an alarmingly rapid rate containing inadequate data, varied opinions, contradicting beliefs, and unfounded projections about the future. No matter what you believe, friends, about current issues, you can find information to support your opinion, can't you? Pretty easy. And that's what we do. We go to the places that support our opinion, and we get more of that buffet. Must be true then, right? Friends, information itself has gone viral in pandemic proportions. Now we have more cynicism and polarization and division about almost everything that we've ever seen before, but that in itself reveals something. It reveals that we have a famine, a shortage, a deficit of true wisdom. In other words, as one billboard says, we are drowning in information, while starving for wisdom. We are drowning in information while starving for wisdom. Brett McCracken puts it this way: it's hard to know if anything can be reliably known. Opinions, sound bites, diversions, and distractions are abundant, but wisdom is scarce. Well, this brings us to the issue of knowledge. I mean, knowledge is really basically about knowing something in its basic form. But there are actually two different kinds of knowledge in the world, at least two. One of them in particular refers to learning information and facts and then logical deduction of those facts so that you can know something. Certain things in life fall into this category. You can learn that 2 + 2 is 4, and provided it's actually shown to be the case, then you can know it's true. But the other kind of knowledge refers to gaining understanding of something by experiencing it for yourself so that you really know it. And this applies to things like people and relationships and life situations, activities and events and tragedies and crises. You know a person only through relationship and experience. You know what a football game is like, not because you sit on your couch and yell at the refs, while those guys run around who don't need the exercise. You know what I'm saying? That's not how we know what a football game is like. How do you know what a football game is like? By playing it. You know what a situation or a crisis is like. How? Because you go through it. And how many of you know how amazingly valuable it has been to speak to someone and talk with someone who has also gone through something you've gone through? Why is it valuable? Because they know what you know. And the word that is most often used in Scripture for the word know is that word. It is really knowing something can happen only as you come to understand it by experiencing it. That kind of knowledge is the kind of knowledge that we see all throughout Scripture. And that is certainly true of things like knowing God, obtaining truth, having genuine faith, and as we will see, having wisdom. So, information and knowledge exist, but they don't exist as an end to themselves, do they? Information and knowledge are an effort to discover and understand truth. And yet, there's a lot of information that is not true. There's a lot of knowledge that is certainly not based on truth. In fact, simply having information or knowledge can actually lead us away from truth, potentially. There are two authors named Jonathan Haidt and Tobias Rose Stockwell who observed in a 2019 research article that they did, they observed this, that even though younger generations grow up with access to an unprecedented amount of information, they are at the same time much less familiar with the accumulated wisdom of humanity than any other generation before them. And they are therefore more prone to embrace ideas that are socially acceptable only in their immediate world, but ultimately misguided because they are missing that accumulated wisdom. That's interesting, isn't it? That's an actual study that was done. Someone once said, feelings now overrule facts. We assert as facts what we feel to be true, and when someone challenges us, how dare they question the validity of our feelings? That's also from the Wisdom Pyramid book. You see, friends, information and knowledge on their own can be simply based on opinion or preference. But there's a big difference between that and truth. It's not the same. If you have an opinion about something, that does not make it true any more than if your opinion was the opposite. And if I have a preference about something, what I prefer doesn't make it true any more than if I preferred something completely different. Neither one of those makes it true. Truth speaks of something more, something bigger, something different than that. Truth speaks of the actual state of a matter. Conformity with something called reality. Not just information, not just knowledge, not opinion, and certainly not just preference. The question is not whether truth actually exists, because it does. The question is not whether it can be known, because it can. The question for today is how. How can we really know it? Can I just read more? Can I just watch more YouTube videos? Can I just learn more or get more information or somehow acquire more knowledge? Is that on its own the key? Friends, knowing what is true and what to place our faith in is far more than just learning information and logically deducing facts to determine whether they're true or not. It's more than that. That certainly has its place, but we must wrestle with what is required to really know something to be true, so that when we place our faith and trust in it, we can then live our lives by it. And that's a big deal. Because if you decide what to live your life by, everything you think and everything you say and everything you do will be affected by that. We must know. We need to know. And for that, we need something called wisdom. I'm going to invite Dave and Kim Chiquetto to come on up and join me today. It is so good to have them with us here today to be able to talk together and interview a little bit about this amazing subject of wisdom. Both Dave and Kim Chiquetto are teachers and professors, and so they warned me they're going to talk really long because of that. And I said, you're not a preacher, so you still don't understand completely what that means. No, I'm kidding. So just grab that mic there, Dave. And we are just so thrilled to have them here. They are experienced, and I appreciate these guys so much and the things that they know and their perspective. And so thank you for being here with us today. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about this subject. And particularly, you've been recently doing a study based on a book that I believe I've already mentioned called
The Wisdom Pyramid.
The Wisdom Pyramid, right. And it's a great book. I really appreciate, the things that I've already noticed in it and read in it. But we're going to look a little bit at some of the first part of the book, which the author calls Sources of Our Sickness. And we talked a little bit about that already. It lays the groundwork for this thing called the pursuit of wisdom. But I do want to ask you a few questions about that, if that's all right, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so the first thing I want to ask is, When it comes to this thing called, our sickness, or what I've called a wisdom deficiency, what do you think are the main reasons for that?
Well, I think your analogy of the city-sized buffet really gets at it, because the first problem is just too much, way too much information that we're exposed to. And we might say, well, I don't spend that much time on social media, but no matter what you do in our culture, information is bombarding you constantly through social media, through emails, through traditional sources like radio, TV, newspapers. We have all of this information. And just like the buffet, too much or more is not always a helpful, healthy thing. I think the second problem that's a source of our nutritional deficiency and wisdom has to do with the speed with which we're consuming that knowledge. So it's kind of like going to the buffet and not chewing anything, just inhaling it all. That's not a good recipe for healthfulness, right? And so...
Does that actually happen, like in our world on a regular basis? Like this, like give us an
only
example
among
of that.
teenagers.
Oh,
No, no.
right. If only.
No, for sure. And you know what? We do consume things really quickly online and as all this information comes at us. So often we don't even read the whole thing. We just look at the headline. In fact, I've been guilty of this myself, sometimes posting something or reposting something when you haven't even read the whole article, but you think, oh, that sounds really good. I know Pastor Tim would like to read that, so I'm going to send it to him. And so we do that speed thing, which also really mitigates against wisdom.
Yeah, and a third element of this issue is that we eat what we want to eat. Okay, now I love my sugar. Anybody love their sugar? Like, sugar is great 10 o'clock at night and in the morning. Pie for breakfast, it's got all the elements. It's got fruit and,
all the food
and
groups.
grains and anyways. But no, so, and this is a real problem, and that's because of the massive amount of content that's available. Like, we really can spend all of our time really just going after those things that we are particularly interested in and miss out on other aspects of life, and thereby, of course, affecting our wisdom. I know Tim and I, Pastor Tim, you and I, we share an interest, which is motorcycles.
Oh, yeah.
And how many times have you haven't gone down that
Yes,
rabbit
I have.
hole
Yes, I
of
have.
motorcycle sites, 3 hours later. So
I
that's
wish I could say I was wise enough to not do that, but it happens.
But and one of the issues with this is something to recognize about the internet, and then particularly for some of the more offbeat, fringe kinds of ideas, is that content can be controlled by very, very few people. So there's just a handful of people, and everyone else is using that same information. It looks like it's coming from hundreds of sources, but it's really coming from the same very few people. So that is a problem.
Well, and Dave, when we look at that thing that we tend to do, which you mentioned, going really towards the things that we want, would it be safe to say that we're kind of being targeted that way? That there's a reason why we're always seeing the same information that we tend to like?
Yeah, we absolutely are, but there's a number of other symptoms. We talk about being targeted, and so that's the confirmation bias of the internet. And so, like, the personal algorithms are designed so that you really only get those things showing up in your feed that you are interested in, and so that becomes like a serious problem over time. For example, you can waste a lot of time on things that just are not all that critical. But more importantly, this, particularly social media, another symptom is the fact there's a lot of mental health issues. So anxiety, stress, depression has been clearly shown to be associated with the long-term and excessive use of social media. And that's because there's so much unnecessary and detrimental information out there. I think the other symptom that we do have is, fragmentation and disorientation. So it really gets down to, like, what is trivial, what is important. And after trying to consume so much so fast, as Kim said, we really have difficulty determining what is the difference between what is trivial and what is important. So, for example, I've been guilty of that. I mean, how productive is it for me to know all of the ins and outs of the Britney Spears custodian battle? Really, just not necessary, okay? So yeah, sorry, a dirty little secret.
That's awesome.
I didn't even know that about you, Dave.
But, and sort of the final symptom is, there's kind of a decision and commitment paralysis. We think of, Amazon Prime and Netflix paralysis, sitting down at night, what are we going to watch? Because there's so much choice. But the same thing happens in many other elements of critical areas of our life, where we just have the paralysis of saying, really, what is the wise, what is the proper choice here?
And of course, the attention span
Yeah.
that we all have gets really shortened.
Oh,
right?
yeah. There are some definite cognitive and behavioral implications to this sickness that McCracken describes. One is that attention span. Research suggests that we've gone from a whopping 12-second attention span to 8 seconds currently, which is just unbelievable. And along with that, there is a decrease in our critical thinking skills and our ability or desire to analyze things. Right. We also have this insatiable appetite for novelty, right? Because we're seeing all this stuff and it's all so quick. We just want more new stuff, next story, next step of Britney Spears' journey. Whatever it is, we want something new. Wow. The problem with all of this is when our concentration is decreased, there's an actual physiological effect in our brain. And Dave could tell you all about that in great detail. But all I know is that when your concentration is impaired, that actually decreases the amount of gray matter in your brain. And at my age, I for sure need all of those gray matter cells.
I don't want that to go away anytime
So these
soon.
are very, very serious cognitive and behavioral implications of what we do. I think there's an impact on truth, too, as you said, just looking at the present, not putting truth in context. And I read a story this week that was such a great example of how difficult it can be to know the truth and how prevalent misinformation is. Little town in North Macedonia called Veles, very poor teenagers with not much to do, but some good technology savvy, discovered in 2016 a great way to make money: fake news, and infiltrating the American political discussion with all sorts of deep fake videos, fake news, and so on. So a Norwegian journalist photographer went to do some research on this little place and write a book about it. And in the process of doing so, he decided that the very best example of what happened would be to make his own book a fake. So in fact, he took all these gorgeous photographs that are legitimate, but none of his photographs had people in them. In the book that came out this week, every photograph shows you all the people of Veles and what they're doing. Each one of those characters he developed, just like a video game character, and inserted it with the right lighting and so on in his pictures, just to see if anyone would pick up on it. Even his most knowledgeable photography colleagues, nobody got it until he pointed it out. So serious problems with truth and misinformation.
Wow, do we ever need wisdom? So, one last question. How can the pursuit of wisdom change this?
I think the key element for us to remember is, there are definitions of wisdom, but for us as Christians, the life, the death, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the Messiah, changed everything. Our whole template, our basis for wisdom is not any definition that the world would have regarding wisdom. We come from a point of view where Christ is king and God is in control of this world. So everything that we look at and make a decision upon and apply wisdom to is different for us.
Wow, well said. Thank you. Let's thank them today. Thank you, Dave and Kim. I so appreciate you sharing that with us today. We want to just encourage you to make note of a great seminar that we're going to have with Dave and Kim Chiquetto, as well as with Chantal and Sunali Pereira. Together with Pastor Jesse and I, we are going to have a seminar called The Wisdom Pyramid, Feeding Your Soul in a Post-Truth World, based somewhat on that book. And on Wednesday, November the 3rd at 7 p.m. right here at our London campus, just show up. You don't need to sign up. Just come on out, and we will tell you what room to go to when you arrive. But Wednesday, November 3rd, come on out to a seminar that's going to follow this series. So we consume too much, and we end up sick. We consume it too fast, we end up malnourished. We consume only what we like, and we end up unhealthy. Another habit that we often have is simply trying to become wise by the standards of our culture and our society and our world and ourselves, as Dave mentioned. Listen to what the Apostle Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Do not deceive yourselves. If any of you think you are wise by the standards of this age, you should become fools so that you then can become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness in God's sight. Ask yourself this, friends. What standards do I use to determine whether I'm wise? Am I willing to become a fool in the world's eyes in order to pursue godly wisdom? And how can I know if I'm actually doing that or not? You see, true wisdom involves knowing where to find truth and what to do with it, when to use it, and how to apply it in our lives. And in our daily lives, we desperately need to be more wise and discerning about what we take in and think about and dwell on and form opinions on and talk about to others. That will lead to words and actions that truly show heavenly wisdom that comes from God instead of just our own. So where does this lead us? Well, true wisdom will always lead us going down the right path. It will always lead to the path of integrity and morality and uprightness and godliness, a path towards God himself. In John chapter 8, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You see, friends, this is where wisdom leads. True wisdom always leads us to the truth. And I want you to look at this just briefly with me before we're done. It leads us to hold to Jesus' teaching, to really being his disciple, to really knowing the truth, and then experiencing the freedom that comes from that. I don't know about you, but that's what I want. That's what I want in my life. I want to know that that's the path that I'm following. We have a wisdom deficiency, and we need to position ourselves to receive wisdom replenishment, which we will go after next week. Together, we will look at how we can get wisdom and know the right sources of wisdom and how much of them, and apply them daily in our lives. Don't miss it. I invite you to close your eyes for a moment with me before we finish. Psalm chapter 1 says, blessed is the one who walks not on the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the wisdom of the Lord, on which he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and then all that he does, he prospers. Father, I thank you today that you are a God of wisdom. I thank you that you lead us in your ways, and I thank you for the ways in which you desire to teach us your truth. I pray that you would begin to open up our hearts and our eyes so that we would actually know, Lord, how to follow you in a way that pursues true wisdom and truth and knowledge from you, and not just our own version of it. I pray you will continue to lead us and guide us in these ways as we move forward. In Jesus' name, amen.
So thank you for joining with us today. Don't forget, the Will Graham event is happening tonight at 6 p.m. And we just know that God has got some great things in store, so come on out. Don't forget to bring a friend. 2 Corinthians says, each of you should decide what to give. And when you give, don't give it out of compulsion, give with joyful hearts. And so thank you for the way in which you are giving and continuing to help us do all the great things that God has called us to do here at Gateway Church. And so you can see the QR code, or you can go to our website and figure out different ways ways in which you can give. And when you do, you help us to do all those great things, as we said, including missions. And so if you want to help support what Kathy Meisen's doing just on however method you give, don't forget to put the word missions. Again, we're just so grateful to have you joining with us today. Before you leave, for those of you who are in person, we do need those chairs stacked 10 high over against the wall. Once again, thanks for coming, and we'll see you next week.